Well, hello, hello. Welcome to this week's episode of Grow or Die. I am Laura Chestikoff from Firebird Summit. Hey, you.
What's going on? I'm Lawrence Henderson from Business Operational Support Services, LLC, aka Boss.
All righty. Well, so in our eternal desire to shake things up, Lawrence
Yes,
is going to pick a topic again this week.
I am.
Good.
So, in this crazy season of opportunity that we're in, one thing that everybody's been talking all about, how do we, navigate this next normal, and there's all this anxiety built up. But I want to take a different approach of how do we honor the small things or the good things that are still happening in our lives, and what does that look like to maintain and keep that front of mind, to help us put things in perspective. So that's my topic. How do we honor the small things?
So I love this one, and I love it for you and I to tackle because I think specifically there is a way I think of looking at it from a very spiritual perspective, which I think is very much in alignment with how a lot of what you look at comes together.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think that it also is a very I think there are very clear ways to tackle it that aren't spiritual, which comes
yeah,
that is how I come at it from.
for sure.
So I think this is a great topic because I think that we look at Brene Brown's
Mhm.
research is all very consistent around how important it is to maintain gratitude, and
Yeah,
that kind of appreciation is a huge part of what helps people stay grounded and
yeah,
helps them with resilience and all kinds of things that are super important right now.
yeah,
And so for me, this is something that I've really worked to actively cultivate. I love what Brene says about, it's not about an attitude of gratitude, that it has to be a practice. And she uses the she uses the yoga example about saying how, she has yoga pants and she even has a yoga mat, and that might help with a yoga attitude, but that doesn't mean she really has a yoga practice. And I think it's an awesome analogy, because I think it's true. I think a lot of times we think that we're grateful, but we don't necessarily make a diligent habit of stopping and acknowledging the
yeah,
little things that matter. And I think another piece that comes up that, again, she talks about in her book is that, after a tragedy, people will look back and say, especially if they've lost someone, will look back and say, it was the little moments that I missed the most. It was those
yeah,
little moments that I didn't appreciate enough at the time, that in hindsight, I would give anything to have them back again.
yeah. It's amazing because what comes up for me in the last week, right? I had the opportunity last week to interview for another coaching potential opportunity, and haven't got any word whatsoever back. But the immediate grateful moment was for the opportunity, but it was for the feeling of freedom that I had during the interview, right? It was probably the most freeing and most fun that I had during the interview. And it was because not only was I honest and authentic with my responses, I was probably for the first time okay with it. And it was like, whatever happens, I'm good with me. And it was like the best, like, and people always talk about, have you ever been in flow? And I was like, during that interview, I was like, I was in a moment of flow, like everything, like literally the question would come out of their mouth. And it was just like, I just intuitively, I knew what I was already going to say. And
Mhm.
it just kept rolling like the entire interview, even to the point where I was like, that was a dumb answer. Let me actually answer the question you asked. And literally before they could even say anything, I was
Yeah.
doing it to myself. And they were just like laughing and taking notes. It was
Yep.
like, yeah. So I hope they had the same experience with me that I had with them. But that just those small moments, right? And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be grandiose. It could just be, are you present enough to see what's right in front of you and be grateful for it?
Yeah. So, and I think it's a great example, right? Because I think it's so, and a job and an interview, I think is a
Mhm.
great place to notice it, because I think so many people go into interviews anxious or nervous, or,
Mhm.
and especially in a time like this, right? I mean, how
Yeah.
many interviews are you really going to get in,
Exactly.
the zombie apocalypse that we're in right now, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I have to nail it, I have to nail it. So to get in there and to really just feel like you absolutely hit your stride, I think is a
Yeah.
really awesome and unexpected moment.
Oh, for sure.
When my last corporate job interview was the same thing. I walked in, I didn't even know honestly what job I was interviewing for, because I was just kind of called in, and it was like this weird like post acquisition thing, and they kind of
Yeah.
hadn't figured out the org chart yet. So I
Wow.
just went in, and I was getting hit from people who came in from different backgrounds, so they were asking me questions from their perspective. So I really had no idea I had no idea what the job was. And I remember just hitting a moment where I'm like, all right, you know what? I can't second guess what they're looking for. So I'm just going to sit back, and we're going to hear what comes out of my mouth the moment I open it, because I'm not going to try to like mentally jockey my way through what they're really looking for. And so it ended up being the best interview ever. Of course, I ended up with the job. It ended up being like my dream job that I loved. And,
Yeah.
but it was just, that moment was this strange moment where I'm like, I'm just going to roll with it. Like, I'm just going to be completely present. I'm going to be
Yeah.
completely focused, and I'm not going to second guess myself or try to get inside their head to figure out
Mhm.
how to give them the answer they're looking for. I'm just going to go. And so
Yeah.
it was a really amazing moment. And those moments are rare. Getting into that
Mhm.
flow state is like always sort of the holy grail, because nothing kind of feels as good as that.
Yeah.
And it's certainly, I think, see happening all that much in a job
Yeah.
interview setting. That's doesn't not the one that's the most conducive to it.
For
So
sure.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I think in general, when you talk about, that sort of, appreciation of the little things, I think again, it comes back to, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in your day
Yeah.
that you don't do it, or you don't, realize it. And I think, I think that some of the stories that come up for yourself, or, like I said, Brene Brown recounts a lot of them of, I just wish I had, you know, appreciated my mom doing something, before she died, or, like
Yeah.
those kinds of things. I think to some extent, I think having an experience like that, where you look back and you're like, wow, I really regret not having appreciated that while it was there, makes it a little bit clearer in the moment when you catch yourself being
Yeah.
super happy with something, that you can stop and really acknowledge it. I mean, that job I was just talking about, actually, for a year and a half, I loved that job. It was crazy high pressure. I was working super long hours.
Mhm.
We were kind of fighting an uphill no win battle, as it turned out, but I was super happy. And I remember one day going into the office at 5:45 in the morning, because I was usually there by 6. And it's dark. I'm the first one to turn the lights on, usually one of the last ones out in the evening. And I remember thinking, I can't believe I am in such a great damn mood coming to the office. I am so happy to be here. And I had this interesting moment of being super aware of being not in the flow in like an
Yeah.
activity kind of state, but just like in this place of being so appreciative that
Wow.
I had something that I knew was never going to last. I knew it was finite, and I knew I just wanted to be able to appreciate it in the
That's awesome.
moment. And I remember feeling really, really grateful. And that was actually when I started making a habit of writing down, like to keeping a gratitude journal, and really just tracking it, and just making sure that
Nice.
I was taking a moment, because in that moment, I remember thinking, all right, at some point, the wheels are going to come off this wagon, either because of circumstances or because, people will change, whatever's going to happen. Me being able to appreciate this just incredible opportunity where I am doing work that I love with people that I love, in a
Yeah.
situation where I feel like we're all like really working towards the same goal, something's going to happen at some point and it's going to start to fall apart. And I don't know if it's going to be, you know, one thing that knocks down all the, you know, all the dominoes, which is what happened, or if it's going to be what, you know, little pieces start to chip away over time. Whatever it's going to be, it's not going to last forever. So I really just want to preserve my acknowledgement that right now is super precious to me, and I might never have another one of these again.
Yeah,
so
that's huge. That's huge, because if people aren't getting clearer about what's important to them and what they're grateful for, particularly in this season of pause, right? Like, life has dealt us the ultimate world pause button, like that probably anybody has ever could remember. And if you sat in this and were processing differently, or you were holding your breath and hoping every day you woke up and it was really a dream and you were able to go back to your realities, then I believe people are going to miss an opportunity to really pick up those gratifying moments. Like, I love, you know, even the arguments, right? That me and my wife, the frustrating, you're in my space, you're in my face, you go do something, you need to get out the house, like, but just to be like, I'm learning her more, like I'm learning her better, like I'm like, and just those moments, like people like, well, that sounds annoying, like y'all annoying each other. It's like, oh, it's actually us learning and us growing and us developing as a couple, because now I know what things trigger her and what don't, right? And but if I'm not receptive and present to that, I keep doing it, right? And now I'm not talking to those folks out there who are actually, you know what you're doing and you're continuing to prick that wound, like stop it. But I'm talking about just these moments of clarity around really what's important. And we always talk, you know, the Maslow hierarchy of need, right? Those foundational level needs, I really believe are being flushed out. And you're really, what's happening for people is they're actually self-actualizing at a lower level because all the other craziness has been removed.
So that's interesting. I think for me, I'm not sure that that's the way I would have described it, but I think that's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
For me, what keeps coming up in this is that I think a lot of it, I think, you know, when you take out the fact that, you know, probably most of the people that you know, are listening to this are not in a daily habit of worrying whether or not they're going to pay their rent. Right.
For sure.
So once you get past that fundamental instability about your physiological safety and, you know, your family's safety, then you start moving into a lot of complicated gray areas that, and you can slide up and down those other rungs of Maslow's hierarchy on a pretty regular basis. I think for me, what's interesting right now is that those of us who are not in the habit of living, I mean, you know, we're not 10-year-old girls in Kosovo, right? Like that is a level of instability that undermines your physical security in a way that a lot of us don't experience on a daily basis. And I think that part of what I keep seeing happening right now is that, you know, most Americans didn't have enough savings to make it a month without a paycheck. You know, most of us didn't have, you know, a second income that we could rely on that was stable. You know, like there are so many things that this has done that have actually undermined some of those rungs in Maslow's hierarchy that we are used to taking for granted.
Exactly.
We're used to them being fairly stable. And, you know, even if you do have a little bit of money saved, the idea that, okay, well, but my industry just collapsed, right? It's not just that I'm not going to work for maybe, you know, 8 to 12 weeks. It's that, no, my industry has completely collapsed and I don't know where I am going to get a job once people start hiring again. Like
total life changes.
Right. And I think those things undermine really foundational layers of personal sense of security. And I think to your point about you and your wife discovering things, I think part of what happens is, you know, when you don't live with that kind of threat at that level of your sense of security on a daily basis, you don't have to deal with it yourself. And your partner has never necessarily had to see that side of you, no matter how long you've been together. And so I think what's happening now is it's revealing all kinds of things, that we might not have been totally clear about ourselves, because this isn't a set of circumstances that we're in the habit of dealing with on a daily basis. And then you have two people together doing it, where you're both experiencing this undermining, factor that you can't control and you can't predict, and you don't know when you're going to come out of it. And so I think that is just creating so much opportunity for disagreements, for frustration, for aggravation, and especially then, being confined in a limited space where you can't even say, oh, screw it, I'm gonna go out and have a cup of coffee. I'll be back in a couple of hours, right? Like it's sort of putting all of that into a pressure cooker. And so I think that right now, and because of that, I think the idea of being grateful and actually acknowledging the small moments is even more powerful, because I think that becomes what we have to use to help hold on to the idea that, right, we don't know what normal is going to emerge from this. I love your use of the phrase the next normal, and not return to normal. I'm really worried about the people who I had a text message from a friend last night talking about when things get back to normal, and I'm worried about people who are clinging to that mentality, because I'm very afraid for what their sense of resilience is going to have to, the kind of hit it's going to take when they start to realize that going back to normal is there's not a switch that somebody's going to flip that's going to return us to January. It's not going to happen.
So the one thing that I'm on the same lines with that is, what I'm worried about is the people with that mindset of thinking they're going to just plug back into relationships that way as well. And my thing is, what really got shaken out for me in this pause was people that didn't normally reach out to me reached out to me, and the people that I thought would reach out to me didn't. And I'm just like, and I have to be careful. I'm super grateful for those new people who came up in this season, but I have to be careful, because I have this tendency to write people off. And I don't do it maliciously or seemingly maliciously, that it was like, hey, you ain't check on me, but I recall the 14 texts that I sent you and your family to check in, and y'all didn't reply, right? And so it's, again, how do I remain grateful more often? I just did a debrief today with I don't know if you've heard of the Benzinger assessment, and so it's all around the 4 quadrants of the brain, and what things are a natural, more efficient way for you to think and operate on a daily basis. And those things that pull from you or detract from you, it causes these certain irritations and all these other things that happen. And so it was actually really revealing that as an entrepreneur, the things that I find very taxing, I am so grateful that somebody has the ability to do, like social media posts, and writing articles. Like I appreciate the gift of you when I get your emails, and like that's beautiful the way you wrote that. But me, I was like, I'm tired looking at it, but I love reading it, but I'm tired thinking about if I had to write it. And it's so that just those gifts of people, like my buddy who is a production guy. I hate cell phone video. I hate editing. I hate it. And for people like that, it just makes me so grateful for the people that are in my life, that when we're in this normal, as we transition, and again, those of us, like people like you understand projects, you understand phasing, you understand milestones. Again, it's going to look different tomorrow. It's going to look different next week. It's going to look different next year. And if you're not preparing yourself for these gradual changes and evolutions, like you said to that person that texts you, like, we just got to be ready for those people as well, to be bundled up with everybody else, because those are going to be the people who have these dramatic things happen, and the rest of us are going to be like, well, you should have saw it coming, but they weren't. They like, I thought it was going to go back. I thought the world hit pause and I was going to be able to plug back in where I left it, and that's not the case anymore.
Well, and it's interesting because so you mentioned something there that I think is really important. And my friend who texted me yesterday is the opposite. And I understand why for him it feels like it's something you can go back into place. He works for a large company that is not, I wouldn't say they're not affected because they are,
Yeah.
but he is not he has absolutely no reason to worry about his job. Right. He is not in a job or at a company, and he's not in a city that is especially or severely impacted. He is in an industry where working from home is not a big deal, so they can all do it fairly easily. And yes,
Yeah.
he's an extrovert who's stuck at home and doesn't love that, but he is not worried about his job disappearing tomorrow. Whereas I don't know any entrepreneur who has not had to experience this in a very different way from someone who works at a large, relatively stable company that's got deep enough pockets to help kind of ride it out and to mitigate a lot of the risk. And so I think, there is again, back to appreciating the small things, right? I can appreciate why, from his perspective, this looks like somebody hit the pause button. From my perspective, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who works with other entrepreneurs, as somebody who has just moved to a new city and was trying to get plugged into the entrepreneurial community in a new city, from my perspective, everything just got shoved in a blender and somebody hit frappe. Yeah. And that is a very different experience than a pause button that we're just going to unpause, right? We're going to have a smoothie at the end of this when we started off with a salad. And like for me, the difference there is enormous. But it does come back to your point, right? Which is there are still enormous avalanches of things where I am acutely aware of appreciating the little things and being grateful. And it's all over my day. It's all over the place. And it's the thing that I have consciously tried to cultivate. I've had enormous amounts of, oh my God, what the hell? I just moved to a new city. Wow, holy crap, And so as I've gone through this, huge up and huge down and oh my God. And again, feeling like somebody just hit the frappe button on my life. For me, coming back to, I am so grateful for these small moments and these little things. And I write them down because I am also very aware that, tomorrow morning at 11:30, I could get a bill in the mail that I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to handle. And I could just start freaking out about what the hell I'm going to do. In which case I know that being able to go back over the past several weeks and just read my list. What was I grateful for? What were the things that jumped out at me as being really helpful and really profound and meaningful? Those are the things that they're sort of self-soothing techniques when you're experiencing that anxiety. But they're also things, one of the things that I do with my boyfriend, and it's sort of a gratitude exercise, but it's also helping to organize my thoughts, but also to kind of archive things, is that when I'm working through something and I'm puzzling how to say it, I actually have a notebook that I just write him a letter in, and they all stay in there. So it just, keeps adding to it over time. So like if I'm having a bad day or, I picked a fight because, I was just stressed out about something and I was snotty and I was just, freaking out, whatever it is, whatever I want to say, I put in there. And so over time, and every once in a while I'll go back and I'll read over a few weeks worth of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I realized that. And for me, writing is the best way to do that. And whether it's just my own writing in my journal, like I have a daily calendar and in it I have gratitude. Every day I include, the things that I'm grateful for at that moment. But others are bigger. It's, him or our relationship, or the fact that we had this, really, weird time and place where all of a sudden we have a new relationship that's being put in a pressure cooker right out of the gate, but it reveals certain things. And for me to be able to write them down is a small thing I can do in the moment, that when I need it later, when I need to draw on that and remember that, okay, the world feels like it's coming to an end some days. But I'm gonna survive it, and we'll figure it out. And sometimes you just need to be able to draw on that well of that kind of feeling. And so for me, having it written down and having it someplace where I know I can go look at, I can read it, I can remind myself of it, is sometimes the only thing I can do, right? In a world with a lot of other stuff going on that I can't control, I mean, I can cook and I can bake and I can, do that, which I keep doing. But that doesn't last. That's very ephemeral, and it's temporary. To be able to write it down, and sometimes to go back and read it to somebody else, and for me that's been the part that helps memorialize those things and keep them from getting drowned out in a sea of anxiety or pressure or other stuff that's going on.
I think one of the biggest things that that I'll look back on and be super grateful for and appreciative in this season is having people like you that, regardless of what was going on with you, still wanting to press and still wanting to accomplish and still wanting to be authentically productive, and not just do stuff for the sake of doing stuff. And again, talking about things like gratitude journals, and really one of the things that I can never thank you and Paul enough for. Paul's our other buddy that was in coaching with us, but was pushing me in the formatting, just a quick conversation around connecting the dots this year, which was always an in-person event the first 2 years, but just how thoughtful you both were with just thinking about the topics, and just, it was like, all right, boom, went into strategy mode, it was like all this gifting came out in a matter of a 5-minute conversation. And then it was like, I was so clear around the speakers. I was so clear, like literally as you were talking, I'm writing down speaker names. And I was like, I know who can own that. I know. And then you jumping in to cover down on the power of decisive leadership, and just in the text message that I immediately got from somebody who had registered that day that was able to come on, and they were like, oh my God, that was so powerful. That blew my mind. Like that was so on time and needed. And just those moments in this season, that those of us who are living in our truth, more than telling these stories or these little gremlins in our brains and that are telling us that we're not enough, we let our truth lead the way, and being grateful for the moments that created. And so for me, that is the part that I'm extremely grateful for. And I can't wait to get the feedback from the sessions and to hand to you all, because that's what I'm waiting for. And that's what I'm going to use as my gratitude journal for a couple months, is just reading the comments from the participants from connecting the dots. So
that's awesome. I did see those emails come in. So.
Yeah.
No, but actually you raise another good point. And I think this is maybe one of those things that I hadn't specifically considered, but actually now that you mention it, I do fully recognize. And that's, just doing these podcasts. Like for me, this has been a really, we had talked about so many other things that we were going to, try to, and we kept not having the time, or were too distracted with other things. And so, to be fair, like this whole calamity in our universe has completely helped lock us into a routine of doing these. And it makes it much easier to stick to it. And it makes it a lot easier to fully appreciate the fact that, like, okay, like we have the chance to do this. And, I love getting a chance to talk to you every week. And I love the fact that we always, find something that's meaty enough to do it. But then we end up with, it's an audio and a video gratitude journal of, getting to spend half an hour every week talking about something that is, an important topic for us that we think has value for other people as well. So so there we go. So there's my audio video gratitude journal on top of it.
There we go. It's so awesome. And again, I appreciate you for having the vision, and just like I said, locking us in. And I literally tell everybody, like, don't touch 4:00 p.m.
on Wednesdays. I know,
like,
me too.
Don't touch it. Like, don't get close to it. Like I have a hard stop at 3:55.
Yep. So do I. And it's so funny because like it didn't, it again, when we first started, it was okay, well, we'll try this and it's like, no, this has really helped it just kind of lock into place and gel. And so, yeah, so no, for
Yeah.
me, that's a lot of what this has become as well.
It's awesome. That's so awesome.
So
Well, I think we got some good content out of that
I
today.
did. We did. That's awesome. So, all right. So I'm going to let you do your
All
last
right.
connecting the dots infomercial.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So Connecting the Dots 2020 final session number 4 is happening this Friday, 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to be talking about managing expectations in a life or career transition. And so we have a bunch of participants that are pulling up on us and going to be there, still free. You go to Eventbrite and it is Connecting the Dots 2020. So I am super excited about the speakers. There are career coaches, they're business coaches, they're new entrepreneurs, and they're just going to lay down some great content like every week, every Friday up till now. So I'm super excited about this last one.
Okay, very good. And tomorrow on April 23rd at 3 o'clock Eastern time, I have a webinar for Managers Coach. Going to go over employee engagement. How do you manage for employee engagement? What does that look like? And what are the things that managers can do to help start building out some serious coaching chops for their team? You can go to my website, Firebird Summit, go to the events page and sign up. It is also free. Like I said, 3 o'clock on Thursday, April 23rd. So in the meantime, thank you very much as always, Mr. Henderson.
Not a problem.
And I will see you next Wednesday, same time, same place. In the meantime,
Right.
have a fantastic week.
All right. See y'all.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.